Kingsman, The Secret Service is directed by Matthew Vaughn and it follows Eggsy, a clever young troublemaker who is recruited by the Kingsmen.
We are an independent international intelligence agency operating at the highest level of discretion.
I remember seeing this movie in 2014 and being like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen a movie like that before. And what's crazy is I felt that same way about X-Men First Class, which was also directed by Matthew Vaughn. And right out of the gate, I just gotta give props to Matthew Vaughn because I feel like in Kingsman, he really shows himself as a very skilled and very capable director. And you need a great director at the helm for a movie like this because this is an homage to really old school James Bond spy thriller movies. Even on the behind the scenes of the movie, you see the director talking about how they needed to walk that line between being a parody and being an homage. I actually think it does a great job at not drowning in the nostalgia and spending so much time referencing these older films that it isolates any general audience that may not be into that kind of thing. But it also doesn't swing that pendulum all the way to the other side and become a parody of itself with just how goofy and over the top a lot of this movie can be at times. And the main thing that is going to keep you from entering into parody is having well-written characters and having a believable story, and I think they accomplished that. Eggsy is played by Taron Egerton, and yeah, Taron just brings so much charisma and humanity to this role. There's just plenty of substance and plenty of compelling dialogue when it comes down to his character. So yeah, he was great.
Did you see the film Trading Places?
No.
How about Nikita? Pretty Woman? All right. My point is that the lack of a silver spoon has set you on a certain path, but you needn't stay on it. If you're prepared to adapt and learn, you can transform.
Oh, like in My Fair Lady.
Oh, you're full of surprises.
Another big highlight of the film is Harry, played by Colin Firth, who is pretty much the recruiter. And yeah, Colin brings a lot of humanity to his role too. And I love the interactions between Harry and Eggsy. They really nail this feeling of a teacher and a student, an OG passing on game to a younger generation. And I appreciated that.
Now do your very best impersonation of a German aristocrat's formal greeting. No, Eggsy.
But easily the best scenes with Harry are with Samuel L. Jackson's Valentine. Casting Jackson in a film is pretty much a guarantee that you're gonna have at least one solid performance in your film because that guy never misses. And the same way that the film is doing a balancing act between parody and homage, I do feel like Jackson is trying to strike a balancing act in the same way of not being too goofy, but not being so over the top trying to be intimidating that it just comes across as silly anyway. Because he does seem pretty goofy on the surface. He has a wild personality and he has these crazy colorful outfits, but it's when you actually understand what he's trying to do that you see he's actually pretty sinister. So Valentine is pretty much taking the approach that humans are a virus to the earth. So in response, the earth is trying to us, and the only way that we can stop this is pretty much doing a Thanos. What makes Valentine a bit more malicious is that he specifically wants poor people to basically just each other off while the rich and the powerful and the elite pretty much stay behind to pick up the pieces afterward. I won't get too deep into how he wants to do this. I think it's better for you to just experience that while you're watching the film. There's this character named Gazelle who's pretty much Valentine's muscle, and she's played by Sophia Boutella. And while I really like this character, I mean, she has freaking blades for feet. I don't see how you could be any more badass than that. I do feel like the character could have used a little bit more in the story, but as is, I feel like she was really cool, and I did like her scenes with Sam Jackson. Merlin, played by Mark Strong, is pretty much Eggsy's instructor or coach or whatever you want to call him. Merlin is a serious character, but he's a caring character. As you get deeper into the film, you can tell that he actually does care about the recruits. He cares about, you know, whether they succeed or not, and he's rooting for them, and it just adds another layer of humanity to this already very human cast. And lastly, there's Roxy, played by Sophie Cookson, who is good in the movie. She's not bad. It's just, I wish there was a little bit more. Just like Gazelle, it feels like she doesn't really have that much to do in the story, which is kind of understandable because the movie's already 2 hours and there's already a lot going on. I love seeing the representation in the films. I just would like to see the characters that are providing that representation to have a little bit more to do. That's all. I do have a couple of critiques with the movie, and my first one is that it is a little too long. You know, there's a lot of really huge action sequences and a lot of really over the top moments in this film, and it feels like every over the top moment is kind of trying to outdo the previous one, which isn't a bad thing, but once you've had about an hour and a half of a movie already, you definitely feel like they're starting to jump the shark and it starts to feel a little Looney Toony. But thankfully, after all of this great action at the end, you know, the close of the movie is right around the corner. It doesn't really take that long to wrap up after the climax, so it's a small complaint. But yeah, man, just so much of this movie like still works just as well, if not more for me than it ever did, man. I love the action. It's so stylized and so many moments that are just implanted into my brain. Yeah, that freaking action scene at the church, I mean, that is one of the craziest action scenes I've ever seen in my life. And this is how action should be. If you're gonna make an action movie, the action in it should be memorable. It should be impactful. It should have style. It should be unique. I love all the little spy gadgets in the film. I mean, you know, it's always fun to play with spy gadgets. I really appreciate that there's a training sequence in this movie. We really don't get those that much these days. And you know what? It's appreciated, man, because this training sequence is actually pretty dope. I specifically thought the parachute scene and the water tank scene, I thought both of those were hits. And I love that this movie is not just super entertaining. It's not just filled with great performances and really snappy dialogue and writing, but it also has, you know, some messages in there too. It has something to say about the newer generations and the old generations. And I think there's a lot to dive into with that. But even if you're not the type of person that wants to dive into all of that, it's still just a very kick-ass, exciting movie with a lot of creativity, a lot of personality, a little too long, a little overindulgent by the time you get to the end. But all in all, it's a great experience. I still love this movie, and I'm going to give it a very strong A. And as far as where it fits in my new ranking, I love it more than Insidious. I don't think I love it more than Toy Story 4 though, so I'm going to put it right there in the middle. And that's my review of Kingsman: The Secret Service. Join me in the next video where I'm going to be reviewing The Emperor's New Groove. With that being said, please drink water, please stay safe, and I hope you have a great day.